Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and it's time. Patch 3.1.0 has finally dropped, or at least it should, because you never know with how these things work sometimes. But yeah, as you can likely tell from the size of this video, this is a big one. I think actually just as large as the 3.0 patch. But what's included here? We've got some stuff regarding the new legendary hero, but not a lot of details in here. That's going to be showcased a little bit later on during Skulls, but I imagine that you'll already be able to go live and find out who it is. Surprise, surprise. Bretonnia getting a bit of a battle rework. There's a new endgame crisis for the Chaos Dwarfs. And, yeah, new Regiments of Renown. But there's a lot of stuff. So, yeah, let's get started. Alright, so, again, they say that if you want to see the legendary hero, wait until the Skulls event, which, you know, fine, fair enough. But considering that we are likely not going to get two separate builds or two separate patches, I'm very much imagining that the legendary hero will already be in game. Yeah, I know it's not ideal, but I imagine that this is more Games Workshop's doing rather than CA because they need to have something to showcase. Anyways, if we go into the endgame scenario, we have the Will of Hashut. And this is actually going to be quite interesting. Let's read over it, right? The Chaos Dwarfs seek to expand their empire, exploiting and exterminating all who stand before them. A network of invasion tunnels have been bored from the Darklands to the far reaches, oh wow, of the Warhammer world. So this means that they should be appearing in different locations then. And legions of Darwizar march with impunity. Factions who would dare to stand against the Will of Hashut must infiltrate these tunnels to take the war to the very center of the Chaos Dwarf civilization. The only way to halt the crisis is to conquer Zarnagrund itself. So is there going to be teleporters and stuff? I imagine so. Or are they just fluffing it up and it's like, oh yeah, they're just going to spawn, but there's no teleporters. So if you're playing in Lustria, good luck getting to Zarnagrund. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they showed a little bit more context. It's pretty cool, we're getting some Regiments of Renown too. So the first one are the Bandits of the Silver Road. These are peasant archers, obviously for Grand Cafe. These brigands have a fearsome reputation at home and in the West. They have even been hired by the dragon rulers of their homeland despite their indiscriminate pillaging. So with the dev note, we have some following information. Armed with a buckler shield. Okay, so they're archers with bucklers, and they look kind of cool, let's be honest, from that little screenshot that we do get. Flaming, flammable missile attacks, and vanguard deployment. These bandits are perfect for supporting fire rain rocket batteries with a handy weakness to fire debuff. Okay, this is actually not too bad. The second Regiment of Renowns is the Hounds of the Blood Hunt. These are flesh hounds of Khorne for the Khorne faction. Funny enough, right, this is a throwback to the end times. The Blood Hunt was a faction there, was basically what was led by Kabanda and a few exalted bloodthirsters. It's kind of nice to see that reference. I know it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but I like seeing parallels to the books, even though, like, you know, the end times was trash. Anyways, Khorne's loathing to see his chosen servants felled by the cowardly practice of the arcane is made manifest in fleshhounds mostly immune to hostile magic. And the dev note says, these Khorne dogs, oh lord, have the dampen contact effect, which allows them to temporarily remove magical attacks, using them in flanking context to support your demonic troops. Pretty good, to be honest. I'm a big fan of the Blood Hunt. I actually had a Blood Hunt themed army back during the End Times days, so it's just a nice little throwback. Alright, moving on to Kislev, we have the Watchmen in the Night. These are armored corsairs with additional hand weapons, looking pretty dapper. So the existence of the Tsarina's secret police is no secret. For the Watchman's ranks are not just the spies who root out opposition to her rule, but also her toughest of her retinue. Bit of a shame that these are her secret police, considering that the Crown Guard were a thing, but I guess those are fully gone now. So the Watchmen drop the pistols that the armored corsairs usually have in favor of a second hand weapon. This makes them a really solid anti-infantry combatant. The ability Rabble Rouse also helps to keep nearby troops immune to fear and terror. Okay, that's actually not too bad. I'm quite excited about this one. And the next one is, okay, this one's quite nice. The Frolickers Bubonic. These are Nurglings. I love the name. Absolutely adorable. We have a little bit of information here which is quite interesting. These Nurglings have dropped the Cloud of Flies ability in favor of a new ability called Blisterback, which allows the unit to deal damage back at their opponents every time they're hit in melee. Okay, so melee damage reflection, that makes sense. The lack of Cloud of Flies helps the unit get hit more often, which in turn triggers the damage reflection more often. They also get a decent leadership buff too, which is enabled when they're in melee. Yeah, I mean, no complaints here. They don't have regen though, which is going to be a bit of a shame. Not going to lie, out of the ones that we've seen so far, I don't know if this one is going to get used as much, other than, you know, I need to recruit a unit very quickly. Alright, we're going to move on to Slaanesh now, the Princes of Perfection. These are devoted marauders of Slaanesh with spears. Interestingly enough, they basically look like Chosen, which is cool. I love the look. I'm a big fan of that shield design and the helmets and so on. They are the staunchest spears that Slaanesh has access to. With perfect vigor and sulfuric musk, they are the perfect addition to any Slaanesh anvil line. Yeah, pretty good stats all around. I'm pretty excited to see how these guys go. Honestly, I'm pretty keen, mostly because of the design option. Now, if we move on, we've got the Chromatic Abominations, which are blue horrors of Tzeentch. They look really nice too. I actually really like the coloring. Yeah, it's not really blue, it's more of a teal, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. Anyways, these blue horrors have a bit more ammo than a standard unit, as well as having a powerful barrier replenishment ability that triggers anytime a spell is cast on the battlefield by a friendly or enemy spellcaster. Awesome. Keep an eye on their barrier points and time your spells appropriately to get a nice boost. Okay. I'm going to find it absolutely hilarious if a unit of blue horrors ends up being your most tankiest unit, because you can just get the barrier up and running. I mean, I'm going to really enjoy actually testing these guys out, so yeah, why not? And finally, for the Regiments of Renown, a freaking blast from the past. Boglars! I know this might not mean much to you guys, but these guys were White Dwarf. Essentially, they are water goblins. Yeah, I'm so happy to actually see Boglars introduced. Yeah, it's a Regiment of Renown, but this is so cool. It's also really nice that they kind of just go into that speculation, which is like, oh, they were much debated. And that's awesome. Honestly, I'm so happy about this. Anyways, the dev note is as follows. Boglars come with poison as standard, cool, but also have the uncanny ability to regenerate entities when standing in water. Keep this unit firmly planted in the water for maximum combat effectiveness. Also, never feed a Boglar after midnight. Why? Great film, though. Great film. Yeah, these are going to be very, very situational, but at the end of the day, it's freaking Boglars, man. I love when they go into, like, deep lore. Hopefully it won't be too long until we see Fire Kobolds. This is where we start getting into substantial stuff, because Bretonnia is getting a rather large update. So we're taking steps to bring Bretonnia up to speed in 3.1 campaign. Damsels now benefit from the Troughs feature, much like the Nightly Vows feature that other characters benefit from. The final vow or trough in the series grants permanent access to Blessing of the Lady for any character who obtains it. That's not too bad actually, that's pretty good. Note that we had a look at providing notifications for vows and trough systems, but due to the way it was built in the day, it's unachievable in the available time. Never say never, no. That's a bit disappointing, but okay, that kind of makes sense. At least they're still looking at it and there's potential for stuff in the future. Attribute and ability changes. The Blessing of the Lady stat bonuses have changed as follows. The Blessing of the Lady now provides plus 15% ward save instead of plus 25% physical resistance. Overall, that should be a little bit better. Physical resistance isn't what it used to be when Warhammer 3 was released. The interaction between magical attacks and physical resistance changed, meaning that any unit with magical attacks could bypass and ignore the physical resistance of enemy units. This left Bretonnia somewhat in the lurch, as all demons have magical attacks, meaning that the Blessing of the Lady was easy to bypass. Yeah, this is actually going to help. To address this, the Blessing of the Lady now grants ward save instead, which cannot be bypassed. This means that all units benefiting from this ability will have a much better time fighting demons and any foe wielding a magical weapon. So, funny enough, on the tabletop, the Blessing of the Lady did provide ward save. So yeah, we're back to full circle, we're back to the ward save. I'm really, really happy about this. Let's carry on. The Blessing of the Lady can now be equipped to units in custom battle. Certain units, mostly knights and non-Grail Knight characters, can opt to take the Blessing of the Lady for 200 gold. Okay, fair. That's going to help with competitive play, make them a little bit better. This does not affect Grail Knight characters or the Fey Enchantress, who always have the Blessing of the Lady equipped. Okay. The interplay between Bretonnian knights and peasants is now represented by two new attributes, Knight and Peasant. Oh, cool. All knights and knight characters have received the new Knight attribute and do not take any leadership penalties if any unit with the Peasant attribute routes nearby. All peasants have received the new Peasant attribute, which has no inherent gameplay effects but is used for ability and attribute targeting purposes. Knights Errant have received a new passive ability called Impetuous. When Knights Errant are charging, any friendly units within 35 meters, including the Knights Errant, become immune to psychology for 30 seconds. Wonderful. Oh god, this is going to be really, really interesting. I wonder what's spurned this on. Note that the peasant units have had the expendable attribute removed, as the Knights and Peasant attributes now cover that for gameplay interaction. That's fair. Okay, and now all peasants have received a new passive ability, the Peasant's Duty. Peasants, men-at-arms, battle pilgrims, squires, bowmen, yeomen, and trebuchets now gain +8 leadership if a friendly unit with the Knight attribute is within 55 meters. The awe of standing near the glorious lieges is all they need to embolden their resolve. Peasant infantry overall have had their leadership reduced slightly to account this change. I'm going to have to wait and see, but overall the change is good. The buff is actually quite good. I am a big fan of this. God, they're really fixing up Bretonnia for battles. It's not just for like custom battles and like competitive play. This is going to help in campaigns too. So overall, I'm really, really happy. And we do have some unit changes. So you can find many more unit changes listed below in the main body of the unit patch notes, but here are a few select highlights. Grail Knights and Grail Guardians have been rebalanced at lower entity counts, 48 and 32 respectively. We made this change to emphasize the heroism of the legendary Grail Knights of Bretonnia, as well as making their overall battlefield readability a bit better. All of the Bretonnian cavalry units used to be composed of 60 entities, meaning that it was difficult to pick out various cavalry units at a distance. Really? I mean, you know, unit cards exist, right? Obviously not for the enemy too much, but I really doubt that this is going to change much, because, like, you know, you can just, like, scroll over the actual unit and, you know, it'll tell you what it is. But, okay. Both Grail Knights and Grail Guardians now deal majority armor-piercing damage, making them a lot deadlier in combat. Awesome, I love that change. Hippogriff Knights have had a noticeable buff. Hippogriff Knights now benefit from the full Grail package. This comprises magical attacks, perfect vigor, and the Blessing of the Lady baked into their cost by default. Beautiful. This unit has also had their collisions optimized a bit, and 4 entities have been added to the unit. Okay, so they'll be better with the charge, because the more entities that you do get, usually it's the better charge if you know how to actually separate your unit and have them a little bit spread out, right? The Grail Reliquary has been relieved of its leadership buffing role. A bit, okay. So now that the Knights can prop up the leadership of the Peasants, it means that the Grail Reliquary doesn't have to carry the Peasants as hard as it once did. To reflect this, the Icon of Devotion ability now buffs melee attack and has its overall leadership buff reduced slightly. Okay, melee attack isn't too bad. Still not great, but yeah. Combining this unit with Knights or Paladins is now really good synergy to keep your front line healthy. Yeah, okay, let's see how this goes, but overall, sounds okay. Alright, we're going into gameplay fixes now, and the first section is stability and performance. Fixed a rare crash related to the sounds of VFX when exiting a battle or campaign. Yep, had this issue, that's good. Fixed instances where softlock could happen when more than one cutscene is triggered simultaneously. Yeah, interesting. Weird one, but hey. Fixed an issue where people were unable to access DLC when playing offline on the Epic Game Store and on the Microsoft Store. Okay, again, good. People need to actually access the stuff they paid for. Fixed a softlock that could occur during Drika's Coadil Unchained quest battle. I guess 4th time or 5th time or 6th time is the charm. Let's hope. Fixed an issue where the King and the Warlord DLC could not be accessed when the game is running from Xbox app, okay. Fixed an issue where events would always pop up when multiple events were sent at once. Wouldn't pop up. Sorry about that. And the final one is fixed a possible crash that could occur when occupied settlements had buildings that could grant pooled resources. Oddly specific, but I guess if it's fixed, I mean, it's clearly an issue. Weird thing though. Okay, full-on gameplay now. General updates, rules, and systems. We've improved the user experience and performance of the load game panel for users who have a large number of save games. We now only load the first 25 saves, dramatically improving the time it takes to load the load game panel. Awesome! This is fantastic. This is a major thing. If you didn't know, the more saves that you do have, the slower your game will be. So this is fantastic. I'm so happy. A new button will load the rest of your save games. Added a new delete button that allows you to delete currently loaded save games via campaign. This also works for shift selected campaigns. Fantastic. I'm so happy about this. Yeah, this is going to make the game a lot better. I can't wait to test out this patch because they don't give it to us early, unfortunately, which I don't know why, but it would be helpful for video's sake. Anyways, AI rules and logic. We've made further improvements to AI artillery units in wall settlement battles to prevent them from wasting ammunition on unnecessary gate building targets. Okay, fair. They will now take the extra care when assaulting a wall by no longer attempting to make breaches where there is no need for one, such as when a gate is already being targeted by a friendly unit, or if there's already a nearby available entry point. Okay, it's going to make things a lot more logical now, which is so good. Let's continue. They will also no longer target gates when inside of a settlement, nor will they target gates where the angle of fire is too tricky, making them prioritize shots with chances of greater accuracy. I know people are going to get a little mad about this. I'm pretty sure people are going to start complaining because they're like, oh no, the AI is too strong now. But believe me, it just makes so much sense because they were practically useless certain times. In addition, we've made improvements to AI unit groups instructed to guard vulnerable units when attacking settlements. Units will not remain idle in place when taking fire from fort towers. Good. Units will opt out of guarding other units when they are idle for too long, instead pursuing other tactics such as assaulting gates. Let's see how this works. I'm kind of curious. More additional improvements to distance checks between breach points in settlement walls to account for any hard collisions between points. This was previously disrupted ongoing gate assaults. Okay. We've rolled back changes made to improve the attacking AI's ability to acquire capture points in settlement battles, as it was adversely affecting their defensive behavior. Instead, we've implemented a new solution to improve the AI attacking ability, to focus on unowned capture points where said attacking AI has all units nearby. Okay, well, the thing is, this is something that is actually quite serious. The siege battles became an absolute joke, even more so than they normally are, because the AI just wasn't moving, the AI wasn't defending, but when they were aggressive, they were getting annoying, because they were going for areas where, other capture points are the other side of the map, essentially, rather than actually fighting their way for the main capture points. I still don't like capture points. I think that they need to remove them. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see if the outcry is loud enough, and let's see how the AI performs. Furthermore, we fixed an issue where defending AI units in settlement battles would continuously sally out to attack targets while units with the stalk ability were close by. This locked AI units into a cycle of sallying out and retreating back to the settlement. Now, once a hidden unit with stalk ability is discovered near a target, the AI will refrain from continuously to sally out and shall instead engage the target. Well, let's see how this goes. I'm not saying that they're lying or anything. It's more the case of sometimes things don't work out. We're going to have to wait and see, obviously. But let's be honest, we need a big fix to settlement battles. Any changes is going to be good. We're expecting a big change, I believe, in 4.0. But, let's see. Okay, there's a section here that we don't really need to talk about too much. It's the tooltip changes and updates, other than the fact that Mr. Ooze from Reddit really helped out Creative Assembly here. So thanks for that, Mr. Ooze. Basically what this means is a bunch of units that weren't really attached to certain skills and so on are now finally going to get those skill upgrades, which means a bunch of units are finally going to get, a lot of bonuses, which is needed for a campaign that lasts a long time. For example, myself, I like to play campaigns that go into like 500 turns long, depending on how slow I take over the world and so on. So yeah, eventually the enemies are going to have a lot of skills. You're going to need them too. Alright, the mass tooltip. We've discovered an issue with the numbers displayed by this tooltip, which we have now fixed. Previously, it was adding up the mass of all the associated entities within a single model and displaying it as one giant number. So for example, a chariot could add the mass of each horse, each rider, the engine, and anything else attached to it. This was incorrect, as the effective mass of a unit is generally governed by a single part. See the notes from 3.0. Yeah, we had a big discussion regarding this when 3.0 came out. So at least that's going to fix it up, and now we can actually see what the true mass is, which mass, for those who aren't aware, is focused on how good they are in charging into enemies and so on, because the bigger the mass, the more damage they'll do. So other mass-related changes, okay. We've also taken the liberty to update some older mass values to bring cavalry units up to scratch. We've got some good feedback when we increased the mass of Wild Riders in the last patch, so we've made a few changes to cavalry mass that will hopefully push us nearer to the nice sweet spot where charges feel impactful but can still feel counted in the right circumstances. Yeah, this should be good. The Wild Rider change was actually fairly good. So let's continue. Generally, we've attempted to break cavalry up into certain mass brackets like light cavalry, regular cavalry, heavy shock cavalry, monstrous cavalry, and character cavalry. So the experience and interactions between cavalry and other units are more readable and consistent across the board. This is still a work in progress, so if you have any strong opinions on the mass of the units, we'd love to hear them. That's great. Other notable changes: players must take a Lord character type as their Lord in game of domination or survival. Okay. Characters mounted on chariots can once again fire magic missile spells. Fantastic. And units should be a bit more reliable when attempting to fire magic missiles from walls. Awesome. Now, the main thing about the mass changes, especially when it comes to cavalry, is a good thing because different cavalry would work different ways in tabletop. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that a lot, but it's nice to have similarities there. It's also something that we've seen in other games like Troy and so on. So it's about time that it started bleeding into the Warhammer series. Now we're going to jump into racism balance, and I've got timestamps, as you can tell, on the video. If not, you can just check the description because sometimes YouTube doesn't update it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it as general. However, when a race has enough new information, then I will actually give it its own section. Like, for example, the Dark Elves are finally getting a much needed update. So we'll talk about that in just a second. On screen right now is just general changes for spells and abilities. It's more if you're interested in stuff if you play like multiplayer, but like that's like 2% of the player base, so yeah. However, one thing to note is all rights, including those for the Tomb Kings, High Elves, and Vampire Coast, are once again locked until their requirements are met. I hope that also means the Lizardmen, because very early on dealing with the Jurassic Park right was absolutely terrifying. Not fun at all to deal with, believe me, especially when you're playing Kairos and Oxyolo does that from the very beginning. Nothing for the Beastmen just yet, barring a little bit of changes regarding mass. Few mass upgrades which should make them better at charges. And I don't know, maybe a bit of a nerf to Centigore units, which I don't know if I'm too keen on. But yeah, the Beastmen are in a good place, let's be honest. Ever since their actual DLC and their rework, they've been in a fantastic place. Bretonnia, as you can imagine, has received a lot of updates. This is all in reference to just pretty much changing everything possible. A bunch of bonuses here and there, just making them a bit more violent, which, let's be honest, was kind of needed for Bretonnia. Hopefully they'll be able to do a decent amount of damage now. I can't wait to play as them. We'll definitely have to do a Bretonnia stream at some point, because it's been a long time coming. I've been avoiding them for obvious reasons. But yeah, you can see everything on screen. There's a lot of changes. There is a lot of changes. Mostly just the battle mechanics, but we already know about the other stuff that we've already talked about. Interestingly enough, the Chaos Dwarfs are getting a lot of attention this patch. I guess it's just to kind of balance things out, which is kind of needed. We'll talk about the campaign general updates and so on. So general updates, Chaos Dwarf and Legendary Lords will no longer lose their immortality upon Confederation. Yep, fantastic. Fix the script error when completing a long victory as the Chaos Dwarves in Immortal Empires, okay. Removed Infernal Engineer from Drazov Cinderbreath's mount. Really? Oh, weird. Oh, wait, I think he actually needs to be on foot for that. Okay, never mind. Unit customization will now work when used in conjunction with the Magma Cannon or the Death Shrieker. Cool. And fix a visual bug in the province panel where the armament production value was not taking into consideration the armament modifier bonus value. Yeah, this is kind of important because you were sometimes getting less or more and you weren't really aware until the next turn and it just looked weird. So if we go to campaign, fix Gorda's Backstabber being unable to equip the Canaanite Assassin Auxiliary, okay. Removed out-of-date faction effects for Zatan and Drazov that were granting excess casualty replenishment and research rate bonuses. Okay. We're going to have to wait and see how that affects stuff. I mean, yeah, they were very powerful, but I thought that was generally the idea because they were so powerful on the tabletop. The collect income checkbox should no longer be visible in the building browser. Okay. Drazov no longer counts towards the hero cap in multiplayer when mounted atop Cinderbreath. Good. The labor amount when raiding now correctly lowers when units are disbanded. Alright. Yeah, it was a bit exploitable, so fair enough. Fixed an issue where the amount of raided labor wouldn't lower when multiple armies were raiding the same region. Again, this was exploitable. The Great Drill of Ashut, Chaos Dwarf Final Battle, can now be teleported to in the Realm of Chaos. Thank you. Very, very important, because I know some people who just didn't want to get there. Maybe they built too far, the character was too far away, so they had to get rid of the army and then re-recruit it. It was just annoying. So that's great. Tower of Czar seats that provide bonuses based on the number of seats owned in the same district now correctly count towards seats of the same district type, removing all bonuses from previous owners. This is applicable to new saves only. Okay. Chaos Dwarf provinces now correctly display their workload after confederating another faction. Cool. The scaling success for Chaos Dwarf and actions against enemy heroes is now in line with the other lords and heroes in the game. Great. Rune of Immunity upgrade now correctly applies spell resistance to missile infantry in the Hellforge. Good. The Tower of Czar's Field Marshal seat now correctly states that it works for all armies and not just the faction leaders. Fantastic. Convoys now only receive the Strength through Pain experience reward one turn after choosing to train at the Cornate Shrine in the Dueling Shrine. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Fixed the path of fire convoy event to stick to the road dilemma option, incorrectly delaying the convoy for a turn. Great. And the Darwi Czar now have access to the special landmark at Nagash's Czar. Okay, that's not too bad. So far, all the fixes are not too bad, and it's going to be good considering that they need a little balance, and you can see that in the unit changes. There's a bunch of changes coming into effect there, which is going to make the Death Shriek a little better, which is kind of important. Yeah. Quite keen on this overall. No nerfs, big nerfs at the very least. So I imagine that you'll still be able to conquer the map fairly quickly. Alright, so we're stopping at a race here because the Dark Elves are getting a hefty rework. So they're getting a slave update, which is about time. Dark Elves now have the ability to consume their slaves in order to rush construction, just like the Chaos Dwarves. Fantastic. High Control now reduces the slave consumption within a province. This recreates the Chaos Dwarf labor relationship, where if you maintain control, you lose significantly less labor per turn while maintaining slaves as a global resource for the Dark Elves. Absolutely amazing. Post-battle slave rewards have been rebalanced to offer significantly more based rewards, but significantly less from the post-battle options. Okay. Overall, this should be a small net increase, but more importantly, give the player more freedom to not always select the slave option to stay in the green. Okay, kind of like the Chaos Dwarves again, I imagine, right? I should imagine so. Okay, slave rewards from raiding have been improved. Good. Where we've also fixed a few pooled resource-related bugs where raiding, such as being able to spam raid in a single region without lowering the overall amount. Okay, this should be pretty good. I am very interested in playing the Dark Elves now. This should be a lot faster. Remove the construction speed buffs from maintaining large amounts of slaves. This now is covered by the, additional rush construction. Maintaining a low amount of stockpiled slaves now increases control, while maintaining a large amount of stockpiled reduces control. Fair enough. Okay, this is actually pretty good. I'm actually quite happy about this. This should generally be very, very good for the Dark Elves. I'll have to have a little bit of a test there. So, effects. Adjusted the slave quotas edict to reduce the cost of rush construction, slightly reducing the growth amount. Fair. Buildings. Slaves are now consumed and the bonus effects are now applied on a per building basis if they can be afforded, rather than all buildings simultaneously turning on off if the player has over 100 slaves. All buildings which have bonus slave effects now also consume slaves. Fair enough. Slave construction consumption per building has also been lowered. Good. All slave consumption buildings now provide lower base benefits, but greater bonus effects if slave requirements are met. This was the opposite before. Okay. Ports no longer consume slaves for bonus income. They now generate slaves per turn. Fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot of ports that you can get, so this is going to be very, very useful. This has been done to help counter stacking slave costs per turn into the endgame, and also provide rewarding targets for hunting down and capturing ports with your Black Ox. Yeah, going to Orth 1 is going to be very lucrative here, or if you're playing as Lokia, just the eastern portion of Cafe. I was about to say Cashew for some reason, but yeah, this is pretty good. And they've adjusted some buildings, so slave income moved to road buildings, remove the growth from road buildings, I guess that works. Reduce dick tax cost, move to slave pens building, okay, fair play. Slave pens, now reduce the slave consumption from buildings, okay. Slight replenishment buff from the growth building. So far, so good. And obviously, the Carond car, which is historically known for a lot of slaves, now provides a better global reduction to slave consumption if you get the landmark, which I want to get anyway, because landmarks are usually quite good. There's a few other changes here and there. I'd suggest going over them, but it's mostly just like battle stuff. Overall, I'm quite happy about this. I think that this is going to be a very good change for the Dark Elves and bring them up a little bit closer to the Chaos Dwarfs. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm very optimistic considering the fact that I wasn't expecting any changes coming to the Dark Elves until they eventually had a DLC. But yeah, well done, Creative Assembly. Hopefully everything works as intended. I might fire up a Dark Elf campaign after Skulls, because obviously Skulls is happening today and there's going to be reveals and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to come today. Alright, we're going back to the general updates. Nothing really for the dwarfs. The greenskins got a little bit of a nerf with the Snotling pump wagons, which, let's be honest, they were pretty strong. That's pretty much all I can say. They were absolutely powerful. So yeah, maybe a good thing. Though the Wyvern did actually get a decent entity mass upgrade, so that's going to be quite good. But in general, everything should remain the same for them. Alright, we're going back to the general updates. Nothing really for the dwarfs. The greenskins got a little bit of a nerf with the Snotling pump wagons, which, let's be honest, they were pretty strong. That's pretty much all I can say. They were absolutely powerful. So yeah, maybe a good thing. Though the Wyvern did actually get a decent entity mass upgrade, so that's going to be quite good. But in general, everything should remain the same for them. A few little bonuses to the cavalry and big monsters for the High Elves, which is generally good. And also, now you've got a reason to capture Chaos Dwarves or Atharian. They provide some bonuses. We don't know what they are. But in general, I'm kind of happy about this. At the end of the day, it's going to be quite helpful. And it looks like it makes sense now to build up the... Ooh, wow, yeah, the Tor Ilir building, the Illyrian Stables. This is actually quite good. It's been taken down from tier 5 to tier 3 and has been reduced from 10,000 income to 5,000. This is fantastic. No big changes to Khorne and Kislev, and I think that's perfectly fine. At the end of the day, they're both decent factions. Yes, I know what you guys feel about Kislev. They're getting a few little upgrades here and there, but yeah, DLC will come for them eventually. Well, Shadows of Change. So it's just the waiting game, and then the faction will hopefully, knock on wood, feel a little bit better. Few changes here and there for the Lizardmen, but not really that much. The Lizardmen are in desperate need of a rework. Well, there's a few factions that are in need of one really, really badly. This is going to tide us over, I guess, a little bit. I really hope that we eventually get word on what the Lizardmen are going to be getting. As, let's be honest, the only Lizardmen faction you should be playing is Oxyotl, because it's the most stable, it's the most fun campaign. All the other ones are fine, but kind of lacking, right? And yeah, nothing for Dorska, essentially. I really keep forgetting this faction exists, if I can be very, very honest with you. Please, Creative Assembly, just a little word on Norska would be great. Like, yes, we are thinking about stuff is just enough, because yeah, not even mods can kind of fix this faction. Nothing really for Nurgle, Ogre Kingdoms, and Skaven, which is kind of expected. Nurgle is going to eventually get some, hopefully, big changes in Thrones of Decay. Ogres need a little bit of quality of life, but I imagine that they're saving that for a patch where they can properly look at them. And Skaven are fine, just, you know, Skrog needs plague mechanics, and I keep saying this as much as often. But, yeah, you know. And just the thing, to put it in perspective, right? I'm only halfway through the patch notes right now. Obviously, I'm imagining that there's a few factions that didn't get too much attention, so it's not going to be that long of a video. But yeah, I'm literally at the halfway point right now, and this video is like 30-something minutes long. Yeah. Nothing for Sinesh and Empire, barring just a few changes here and there. And anything, it's just mostly going to affect you. for Sinesh if you play multiplayer. Actually, it's a bit of a bonus, I think. I'll be honest, these factions don't really need anything until they get their own respective DLCs. The Empire is fine in terms of multiplayer. Campaign is doing a little better. Sinesh is perfectly fine. Let's be very honest there. So yeah, let's move on. Nothing for the Tomb Kings, Tzeentch, and Vampire Coast. Now, you might be disappointed, but if anything is a testament, look how long this video is, and look how many changes have already come into effect. I am quite happy with how things are going. It's only going to get larger as the years progress, I imagine. But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. I would like to see a few changes for the Vampire Coast, make them a little bit better. And there's a few things that can actually make them a little bit better, but maybe a DLC would be great in the future. Then again, we're not going to speculate here, so let's move on. Okay, we get a little bit of change to the vampire counts, more so the Dead Rise Again. The underlying chance of units returning as part of the Dead Rise Again feature has been tweaked, resulting in approximately a third fewer units returning post-battle over the course of a campaign. This is going to affect you as a player, but it's going to, well, calm down Vlad a lot, you know? So yeah, the base chance for all units has been reduced from 20% to 10%. The chance of all units, which is proportional to their recruitment cost, has also been halved, and the additional chance for lords and heroes has been reduced from 10% to 5%. So yeah, this is going to be useful. Yeah, it's going to be enough to you, especially if you rely on that, if you're just sending a lot of suicide armies and so on. But like Vlad, Ghost, not so much Manfred for some reason, but Vlad and Ghost are hyper aggressive. They're always expanding. Vlad is a very big issue if you're playing around that area and you haven't dealt with him early on. So yeah, this is going to be very good. Your campaigns are going to be less stressful, that's for sure. And finally, for the races, not a lot of changes for the Warriors of Chaos and the Wood Elves. However, and you can hear my cat meowing in the background, Ariel will now, or Ariel as they call her now, will now actually spawn when they do the Ritual of Rebirth as intended. So that's great. That's great. I am pretty happy with that overall as, well, she's a core character and she just wasn't showing up. Okay, so there's not really other changes there barring graphical stuff and audio stuff and UI stuff. But it's mostly just like fixing typos and, you know, graphic issues. This is pretty good. I think this is a massive, massive patch. Definitely shows it there. We know that there's no other patches until update 4.0, which is coming alongside Shadows of Change. So, yeah, I mean, they did state that any sort of hot fixes will come into effect if it's so needed. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling very, very confident. It does mean that updates are going to get a little slower. We're not getting them every 6 weeks anymore. But if this fixes a bunch of issues, I'm fine with patches being a lot more separated if they're going to be quite large and they're going to actually fix proper issues. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. There's a lot more to come. You guys are going to be sick of my voice by the end of today because we have another video coming out pretty soon. I'm going to be streaming the Skulls event. By this point, I've already done an Old World video too. Yeah, today's going to be a heavy day. And I'll put this in context. It's currently 4 a.m. I'm preparing stuff, hopefully going to bed soon. Because obviously like tomorrow is going to be just as insane. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one.